Hi folks, welcome to the first of the week 3 videos for MU1111. This week we're talking all about Counterpoint. Before I go any further, I should add, multiple people that have asked, the books behind me, I'm just in my living room with this. The book to my right is Porno by Irvin Welsh. It's not anything that exciting, but it's the sequel to Trainspotting. Ask me about any other books behind me, please. Okay, this week we are talking about Counterpoint. Let's go over to Dictionary Corner very quickly for our definition. Counterpoint, the relationship between two or more musical lines which are harmonically the same and yet independent in rhythm and melodic shape. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so this week we are talking about species counterpoint first. So species counterpoint is a kind of compositional teaching method developed by this handsome chappie, Johann Joseph Fux. He wrote this in a book called Gradus ad Parnassum, Steps to Parnassum as the kind of height of paradise, 1725. And he taught counterpoint, composing counterpoint, through something called species counterpoint. It's exactly what we're talking about in this first video. This technique for teaching composition uses simple rhythmic values and then teaches composers how to write 1, 2, 3 or 4 notes against a larger value, usually a semibreve. So for our video and for this course really we're focusing on 2 voices with species counterpoint, okay? A longer course would build you towards 4 voices, for instance. So there are levels of species counterpoint, hopefully set out by some of the music examples we'll talk through, okay? In the first level, what we call first species, you write a note against note counterpoint in semibreves. So for every level, you're given a melody called the cantus firmus, so the unchanging song, against which you write a counterpoint. Okay? So in the first species, you write rhythmic unison. They're just both levels are semibreves. But there are rules to this, of course, as there are with everything. So you begin with a perfect consonance, so a fifth or an octave, it's a fifth in this example, and then you end with an octave or unison octave in this example. Penultimate notes in contrary motion, so one line will be 7-8, the other one will be 2-1, again as we see here, 2-1 in the bass, 7-8 in the melody. Other notes of the melody should be consonances, okay? And we see that here, we've got thirds, fifths, octaves, 1/6 as well. That's fine. Perfect consonances, that is fifths or octaves, need to be in contrary motion, otherwise you're going to end up with parallel fifths and octaves. Okay. Avoid leaps generally, so skips of a third, fourth are okay. Fifths and sixths are slightly more rare, but they're acceptable. We've obviously got a fifth at one point in this example. Avoid spelling out a tritone in your melodic line. Fair enough, that would be difficult to do, but it's a good general rule. And don't repeat the same note in the melody either, so it's still got to move. Okay? So first species is the simplest level. Okay? That's sort of getting used to the rules of species counterpoint. Okay? For the further levels, we just start adding rhythmic diminution. We get smaller rhythmic values. So second species, we write 2 minims against the cantus firmus in semibreves. So the rules there are generally the same, except that one simple dissonance is allowed in second species, and that's the passing note. Okay, it's the first time we introduce the passing note. So further rules. So you start your melody after a minim rest, the cantus firmus, and then you end it again with a semibreve, octave or unison. For the 2 minims in every bar, one must be a consonance, and the other one can only be a dissonance if it is also a passing note. Okay? So it can be skips as well, and that could be around the same harmony as well. So we actually find that, let's say I'm trying to count bars, in the 6th bar of this example, okay? A to F with F in the bass, it's obviously just skipping around the same harmony, okay? Different notes of the same triad, whereas other ones have passing notes, okay? We have that in the very penultimate bar, that G sharp is a modally altered passing note, okay? Alright, in third species, we again add further rhythmic diminution. We write 4 crotchets against the cantus firmus in semibreves. So you begin and end with octave or unison. Other rules, you use a consonant for every downbeat. So the first beat of the bar should be a consonant. You obviously have room for lots more passing notes here, and you can think about the second level moving to third species if you fill in passing notes with gaps that you've created. Okay? Alright. The fourth species, also known as suspension species, doesn't introduce new rhythmic values, essentially, but it introduces syncopation. So against the semi-breve cantus firmus, you then write minim notes that are tied over the bar, implying suspension and resolution. Also a sense of syncopation, but that's rhythms moving against the beat. So if the suspended note in the second bar is a dissonance, it has to resolve down by step. Okay, and we actually see that exactly in this example here. If it's a consonance, you can move to another consonance, which we see in the third bar. Fourth species does not include anticipations. Okay, that would be a dissonance in the first chord that would not be allowed in the rules of species counterpoint. Okay, 4-3 and 7-6 suspensions are what we want. 9-8 and 2-1 are not what we want. They imply a perfect authentic cadence. Okay, remember our melodic line moving down in scale step degrees, so not allowed unless you're at the very, very end. Okay? And after all of that, different rhythmic values all added in, it's fifth species that is the difficult one. The free combination of all the other levels. We're not going to go into fifth species because it requires lots and lots of practice. It was the aim for compositional mastery under Fuchs's system, though. Okay? We are going to practice the other levels, though. This is good practice for voice leading for rules around counterpoint. Okay? Here's an example of fifth level species counterpoint from Orlando de Lasso's Expectatio Justorum. This is how counterpoint used to be taught. Okay? Bach, Haydn, Mozart, etc. were very familiar with this technique from their early childhoods. Okay? It's often thought of to be the foundation of classical counterpoint. The logic with me teaching it to you is that if the composers that we're paying a lot of attention to use this and that's how they trained, it makes sense that we should know it as well. Okay? So the first exercise for this week's lecture preparation is working with species counterpoint. So do let me know how you get on. As always, any questions, email me. Thanks folks, see you in the next video.